Ladies and gentlemen, I was gonna start this off with a rap. I normally start. Oh,
Do it.
gun control means using both hands in my land. It's all about the cautious living. That's De La Soul. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest today, Michael Demaris.
How you guys doing today?
Hey man, we doing good. Welcome to Gentlemen's History Hour.
Appreciate it.
Thank
watching
you
you guys
for
a
coming.
while.
Yeah, man, this past Sunday, but it's probably gonna be some Sundays ago when we air this. We had the first annual self-preservation Sunday Gun Day that you were the instructor for. We talked about gun safety, and the premise of it was to invite at least 5 black women out, get them trained in understanding gun safety, gun control, firearm safety, and actually going to the range and taking some shots off. I want to start by saying thank you. That was an excellent class.
I appreciate y'all.
So,
it was
yeah,
fun. It's always fun to have.
And I want to just also give you your flowers too, though, because you came up with that idea in response to the protect the black woman narrative that really had really become a real contentious topic on social media. So you took that moment, and instead of looking to try to win a debate, you looked to try to make a contribution, and you saw it through conclusion. So I got respect and love for you for,
I appreciate it, man. It's Gentlemen's History Hour and Pod and Platformation. So that was the first annual. We got another one that's gonna come, but we'll keep y'all out tuned to that. Hey man, we wanted to talk about guns and black people's relationship with guns and our relationship with law enforcement. A lot of people when we first started talking about guns, they think the Second Amendment,
Okay.
right to bear arms. Everyone could go right to the Second Amendment. There's been a lot of debates with policy and politicians on the Second Amendment. And one thing we were talking about earlier is how when we start picking up the guns, the laws seem to change with us. We started talking about the Mulford Act back when the Panthers were having open carry in 1967. Then Ronald Reagan came. They went to the Capitol and they had the open carry, and then things started to change. The laws started to change. And even before that, when we were talking about the NRA and how they were started and black people fighting in the Civil War on the side of the Union.
Yes.
And now you want to give me a gun. And I'm fighting for my freedom. You give me a gun. But then the black codes and different laws happen in the South, and I'm stuck in the Confederate, and they like, nah, Negro, put that gun down. So it seems like a lot of things start to change, and starting with the history of it. And then as we progress into now in our relationship with guns as black people and understanding guns, we watch movies, we listen to rap songs. Mm-hmm. A lot of our experiences with guns has either been watching a movie, which to me, and we can touch on this, has been some very bad gun safety propaganda. Rappers, to me, have had some of the worst advice on guns. And you listen to rap lyrics and then you watch, you say, oh man. So it gives us this sense of thinking that we know stuff that we really don't know. Because as a kid, the glamorization of the guns and rappers having guns, but we never hear about rappers properly being trained to handle guns. We hear about rappers getting caught with guns or watching movies and we see the propaganda behind guns, but black people in our history with guns and our history with law enforcement. So you let me know where you want to start. I done just kind of drew up the map.
You covered a lot in one blow that takes us from the 1800s all the way to here. So let's talk briefly, maybe a touch on the Civil War and our being given firearms to fight for our own safety, our own freedom.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, and I have some other counterparts who are great at the whole history of the 2A with firearms, but I'll just touch on a few things that, they gave us firearms so we could fight, and they really didn't want to, and they think that we were capable of using it. Mm-hmm. Then at the same time, from certain folklore that I've been told, that at the same time, 1 minute you're abusing me and beating me, next thing you know, you're gonna give me a firearm, and then on the backside, once it's over, you're like, yeah, let me get that from you.
Yeah.
So they were kind of fearful, and some people believe that that's why they made a lot of them Masons, to make an oath to them so that they couldn't turn around and hurt them. Who knows? Yes, throughout our history in this country, we have fought a lot of battles for this country's endeavors. Let's put it like that, for their own corporate endeavors. And when it's over, we still come back home and we're treated less than a human being. A lot of things that are still in place is, what is it? We're 3/5 of a human being.
Yeah.
Why can't I even get that law in my head right now?
That 3/5 of man.
What is it called?
While you finding that, what is the two-way? I've heard y'all say that.
2A is the Second Amendment.
Second Amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Constitution enables individuals to have their Second Amendment to have a firearm. So real quick, while we're sitting here, and if you're watching, there's a list of books here on the table. If you can, we'll talk about them later. But all these books are law books, and so we'll cover that. But the Second Amendment it's two Second Amendment rights is what you'll hear a lot of gun activists. So most of your current gun world, especially white American gun world, they tend to vote Republican. Whenever a Democratic election president is possibly getting ready to be voted in, the white gun world gets up in arms because the last major, not Obama, but Clinton, under the Clinton administration, some of the hardest gun regulations came in place with the Brady Bill. And under the Brady Bill, from 94 to 04, you could not have high-capacity magazines. Oh, that means anything over 10 rounds. A lot of firearms were banned or put on a list of, no more importation. So like AK-47s were $200 in 1992, 93. Now an AK is like $1,000. Certain things were
Is that just inflation or just?
No, it was certain things were put in place to ban the importation. A lot of guns were flooding in, like heroin was flooding the black community. A lot of guns and a lot of cheap guns were coming in. So nobody was really picking up on AKs in the 90s. I was, but because of rappers, because the rap industry was talking about, I'll get an AK-47. But let's go back real quick. So we fought all these wars. We've used firearms. We've done all these things to fight for what we believe to prove ourselves worthy to be in this country and be, looked at as a human being. In the end, we still come back home to racism. Now what? So after Malcolm's death, after Martin's death, the Black Panthers decide to follow the footsteps of Robert Williams with Negroes with Guns, Deacons for Defense down in Louisiana. They kind of picked up the same mentality that we're going to police our own community. We're not going to let these marauding bands we used to be the Klan and everybody else that would come through those rural communities. Now it's the police. So Huey and Bobby being in college, they were able to read the law books and say, okay, we have a right to arm ourselves against police brutality. Second, we have a right to stand and watch the police carry out their interaction with citizens from a safe distance. And when the police saw that, then yes, the Mulford Act came into effect with Ronald Reagan. Now, I can't talk as in-depth about that act like some of my counterparts because they really go hard about the Second Amendment. I will say that the Second Amendment is a very vital thing because I'm a firearms instructor. I've had firearms all my life as a kid with my father being a hunter and his brothers being hunters and in law enforcement and military. So I was around firearms, and I will say you are absolutely correct. So I was around guns as a kid, hating guns because the old men had the bolt actions and the shotguns and the revolvers, and I was like, hey man, I don't like guns. It was loud, it hurt you. Then I got an ROTC in high school, and I started drilling with them, and I liked guns because now I'm like military. And then when the rap industry came along, fatal song I heard in my senior year at Madison High School was, Gangsta Gangsta. And I'm riding my buddy's truck, and I'm like, what is that like? Oh my God, they cussing on wax, and they talk about killing, and I was hooked like it was a drug. And luckily, divine intervention came in my life because I was the one carrying these guns with no real training, listening to rap music, walking through the streets of Houston, north, east side with my, family members and cousins and friends, and being a menace to society, following the movies and doing all those things, thinking that was bravado. And it wasn't until, literally all the way till I became an instructor in 2005 that I really started, when I got my concealed handgun license in 99. But I've had my concealed handgun license or license to carry for 20 years. So then I started taking it serious. But even still, until I became an instructor, I realized, you know what? I was a knucklehead. And now, after 15 years of teaching professionally with police, I'm trained to teach police, security, and civilians. I teach on all those spectrums. I realize I'm starting to change my 2A views. My 2A views are like, I'm kind of quasi anti-gun, meaning if on a given day you go to a civilian gun range and watch young people, young untrained individuals with firearms wield them. We're talking about massive military weapons, and you see how wild they are. You see they have no, their firearms handling is unsafe.
Yeah.
I've been hit with bullets to the face, half a bullets to the face, to the chest, and to the leg. My son was hit with a piece of a bullet at the range because somebody hit the wrong piece of metal and it ricocheted back. So I've caught rounds in a gun range setting because of mishandling of firearms. So I don't believe that everybody needs to have a firearm unless you take a class. I think this should be a mandated class, that when you buy a firearm, you have to go see somebody like myself or the range, get certified, get a certificate, then you submit that off to ATF or whoever, then you can buy the gun. Because there are a lot of people who do not, and that is how, you're right, you're completely right. Rap music, no, and I'm not going to do that because Ice Cube has a song,
Yeah, it's been anti-gun. Well, let me say
gangsta
this.
rap didn't make me always do it, like Cube said. But
let me say, even more recently, Nas and Rick Ross had a song called "Accident Murderers," touching on the fact that a lot of you guys are reckless with a gun, and now some infant, some young kid has been shot or killed because you're walking around with the machismo of I got a gun, and you're not even really a killer. It's an accident murder.
I got a question for for you to have had that experience having guns young before training to becoming now a gun expert. In 10th grade, I was about to buy a gun, and thank God for Jason Washington. I was about to buy a gun. He's like, "Hey, why are you getting it?" And I really couldn't answer, so I was like, I didn't know.
Great.
I don't know why. I just was gonna buy a gun, and I just, for whatever reason, my friend, he asked me right before, like, why are you gonna buy a gun? And I really didn't have a reason. It wasn't for any. It was just the fact that a guy had guns, and I just wanted to buy one. But I didn't want to buying it, and I never really wanted to own a gun. My theory, though, is because a lot of guys in my neighborhood wound up, who own guns, wound up either having to use them or some being used on them. I always felt like when you carry a gun on you, the gun desires to be used. It may be just something I made up. I'm not standing on it, but it was just a belief.
Yeah, like the Nas song, "I Gave You Power," where he talks about the personification of actually being the gun and how the gun makes you feel.
So you two just said something perfect. I'll give you this. I bought my first pistol at 20 years old. I wasn't supposed to have it. I had a friend of mine buy it. We were working for Pepsi at the time, doing the little chill out. Remember the little Pepsi chill out, the little taste test? So we stopped off at the gun show. I said, "Hey man, let's go in the gun show. Buy this gun for me." I'm about to be 21, but I wanted it now because and I wanted the stainless steel 9mm like Cube had in Boys in the Hood. I wanted something bright and shiny out there.
Those movies,
flash,
boy.
right? When he's like, "Yeah, we got a problem here."
Yeah.
When we bought that firearm and I jumped back in that Pepsi van, the coldest chill I ever had at the time of my life came over me. Because I realized I'm not afraid of nobody. I'm afraid of what I will do when I cut loose with this. I knew that inside of me, there's a demon that if I had to use it and cut loose with it, that I probably would not be the same afterwards. You feel me?
Yeah.
So I was more fearful of myself. So even with having a concealed handgun license for 20 years, I teach security for the last 15 years. Like for the last 15 years, I've been teaching security. I can teach police. I can teach concealed handgun. So with that, I keep myself on house arrest. Because one, it doesn't take much to have an interaction, to go wrong. And because of the level of training I have, even if I just gave you a concealed handgun license, you're going to be held to a higher standard in court if you get into some kind of interaction. Because in the course that I teach or that any other instructor teaches, you're supposed to be taught how to de-escalate a confrontational situation.
That's what I was going to ask, Mike. So I look at it like this. Let's just say a trained boxer or a trained martial artist, they know that they have the potential to really hurt someone. So I would feel like if you know that you have that de-escalation is important. The last thing I think someone that's a trained martial artist or a trained fighter, I think the last thing they want to do is get into a confrontation. So it's almost like, hey man, back away, to let the other person know, like, hey, if I let loose, this is not going to end well.
And that's why I think there's a saying in martial arts or a saying in Buddhism or one of these ancient Asians said, the way to fighting is like to not fight.
Yeah, best way to win a war.
So by avoiding a situation, and that's the thing where I will tap on this since we're kind of rolling into this. The Nation of Islam, Minister Farrakhan, he came out with a lecture series way back in the 90s called Rising Above Emotions into the Thinking of God. And one of the things is I went through the Nation in my early. That's what saved me.
And they didn't carry guns.
I will say this.
Well, the NOI didn't carry
The thing
guns,
that saved my life, and I will always give credit to this, is that in those years when I was carrying guns and wilding out, divine intervention hit me. My story is that I came to the Nation of Islam off of Minister Robert Muhammad. I didn't meet him. I didn't go looking for him. I heard him speak at Texas Southern on January 1992 at King Holiday. And that was my matrix period. I didn't ask to take it. And from that, I went into the Nation. The Nation was like, well, you can't have guns. And I was like, hey, how are we going to protect somebody without guns? What is that? But the thing is that when you're coming off the streets into a new organization, military, police, they got to wipe you out of all that madness, that you're uncivilized behavior. So they say no firearms and no alcohol so we can clean you up and reshape you and remold you. So that is why you see the brothers not having that, because one of the biggest things is we're impassionate people as black people. The first thing that happens, even with all my training, it's still a likelihood that I could have a Boondocks cartoons moment of this is a nigga moment. Where I forget all of this and I click and forget because a young person I'm trying to stop from doing something or having an interaction, he calls me an old man. Well, fuck you, old man. I'm like, hey. And like my feelings get hurt. Or another dude, because black men, men, period. We have a lady in the room, so I'm going to keep it as clean as possible. Men, period, we can't tend to keep our ego in our crotch. All right? And I will say that as a man, we have ego in our crotch, so it becomes whose is the bigger. And I'm not going to let you down talk me, no matter how little I am at 5'8", and you 6 foot whatever. And next thing you know, it walks up the ladder, and to next thing you know, it becomes pow.
Okay, well, here's the difference. With you saying that, and this can segue into the gun training. Okay, you're here, other guys here. Egos. The only difference is you've been trained in how to handle a gun. This person may not have been trained in how to handle a gun. When you pull out your gun, it's a different intent.
Hey, they both firing.
Well,
but there's people around. There's different. I guess what I'm trying to get at is once again the accident murderers, the people that they pulling out a gun. They pull it out. They got their finger on the trigger, as opposed to not having their finger on the trigger and pulling it out. They don't know the proper gun safety, and all of a sudden some innocent bystander gets hit.
So let's back it up. Let's back up before the confrontation. My brother here, he's in Walmart parking lot. I'm in Walmart parking lot. He's coming through the lane. I'm backing out. I don't see him over my blind spot. Boom, I hit him. We jump out. I'm like, oh, man, sorry about that, brother. I dented his 24-inch rims. I've knocked into his glitter paint, and now he's cussing. I'm like, brother, I'm so sorry about that. I've got USA Insurance, Geico, Progressive. Brother, I got you. I'm going to take care of you. Let me go ahead and get you a tow truck. He's like, man, I ain't... I'm like, brother, check this out. Calm down, young man. All right, I got you. My fault. It's clearly my fault, brother. Now, we're on private property, mind you. No ticket is going to be given. When you're on private property, not on a public highway, really, unless you hit somebody and hurt them, like I back over him physically, but just hit him in the parking lot, fender bender, cops like, hey, exchange information.
Let the insurance
work. Now, he's still huffing and puffing. And I'm like, brother, listen, calm down. Now, key factor in all this, I'm going to keep a safe distance. All right? I'm 5'8". My wingspan is only so far out. I'm going to keep double that. I'm going to keep him off me. Now I'm going to actually watch everything that he's doing. He will not bring his tones down. He's gesturing all his... After which time...
He's aggressive.
I'm going to... And now, at one point, I'm actually going to talk louder but not to loud talk him. Not to say, hey, mother, I'm actually talk louder to get witnesses to see that we're having this confrontation. So that as I'm trying to back out, say, brother, I'm not, listen, here's my insurance card. No, man, you mean my day. And I'm like, brother, calm down for a second.
Yeah.
So that if this thing does go to a point where he comes at me with unlawful force, notice what I said, unlawful, unwarranted force, and I have to either use force, this is force. There's two types of force. Force, and then there's deadly force. And deadly force is any type of force used to cause serious bodily injury and or death. Whether I hit him with this glass, whether I hit him with this microphone, if it knocks his eye out or busts his teeth out, that's serious bodily injury. That's deadly force. So at this point, before I get ready to use it, I want to make sure I got witnesses that can articulate for me that I was trying to walk out of that. I don't have to retreat by law, Texas law, but I did not want to go that far.
So you're not thinking with you're thinking
So
with a logical
listen,
mind as opposed to being overly emotional about it.
In license to carry or security or even in law enforcement, the firearm is generally taught to be the last resort. But don't get it twisted. You can go from nothing to something in a matter of that if the situation warrants, but you have to be able to articulate. When the police come, I have to be able to articulate that this is what happened. This is the facts of why I did this. Now, he's sitting there empty-handed. How tall are you, sir?
Like 5'9", 5'10".
Okay, so we're about the same height. He's a little heavier than me, but he's empty-handed, I'm empty-handed, and I draw a gun and fire at him. It would be a hard articulation to prove why I shot him when he's empty-handed.
Okay, so let's talk objective and subjective.
Bam. So we were going to talk about that with some stuff that we see in the media, but we'll let. Okay.
Well, because it all ties together. Because one thing that we've talked about, we had an episode where we talked about Huey and Bobby. We were just talking about the early years of the Panthers, and one thing I'll touch on. People can research this, that Mulford Act and then that open carry. Because California had the open carry, and then when Ronald Reagan came, that's when they shut that down due to the Panthers. But then also, we look at what's going on now, and different cases happen, and it becomes this hashtag movement. It's a hashtag for this, it's a hashtag for that. Without us really understanding outside of just the hashtag, looking at it from the two perspectives and having context of history that happened before, because we can get into the no-knock law as well. One is having the knowledge, because one thing the Panthers would say, and we talked about this today, is like, hey, I'll take a fair arrest. Meaning, okay, if I know it's proper protocol, go ahead, arrest me. There's no resistance to that. As of now, we don't really know when things occur in our community, what are my rights? What can I do? What can I not do? Or if the law is not around, what are my rights? And looking at it from the perspective of when the law shows up, how do I articulate it from an objective standpoint as opposed to a subjective standpoint that'll be used against me in the court of law?
So, since we're segueing to that and we're talking about that, I brought some books here for this evening that I want to kind of put out here. The first book is worth its weight in gold if you live in the state of Texas. This book is called, and this is an older version. I have several, so I brought the one that I just grabbed first. This book you can pick up at HCC Central Campus Bookstore. You can go to Central Police Supply Bookstore downtown. This book is about $45. It's called The Texas Criminal and Traffic Law Manual. If you were to enter into anybody's police academy from Brownsville to Amarillo, from Beaumont to El Paso, they would give you this book. Not only that, if you would go to law school, they would give you this book, okay? So this book is the Bible for the state of Texas. Every state has a book like this. This book has the Code of Criminal Procedure that attorneys use to thus either start your case, get you released, what's called habeas corpus. This book has also the crimes of Texas. You'll be surprised that there's so many crimes. When you start reading this, like with reading the 10 Commandments, which came from the
Yeah.
Ma'at, the 42 negative
Yeah.
confessions. All right. When you start reading this just on a leisure and realizing, oh my God, I break so many laws every day. Simple things, traffic laws.
Yeah.
There's so many traffic laws. There's so many simple laws. For instance, let's go to disorderly conduct. Disorderly conduct has so many things. This is disorderly conduct, an offensive gesture. Fighting in public is disorderly conduct. Exposing your genitals or anus in public. There's indecent exposure and there's disorderly conduct. Indecent exposure would be if you were masturbating in public trying to rouse someone sexually. That's indecent exposure. But if you urinate in public and the police see you, that's a Class C misdemeanor. If you shoot a gun in the air, like on New Year's, and you're not at a gun range, that's disorderly conduct. If you curse in public, say we at the open mic and we're doing a poem and we curse and no one is offended, no big deal. But if we go into a church service and start cursing, that's disorderly conduct because someone's offended. So you have to know what the laws are. And when I teach license to carry, we have to tell you what charges that if you get arrested for will automatically suspend your license. Okay, so now I'm teaching you what? The law.
Yeah.
I'm teaching you what not to do, right? So in this book, I'll give you case in point, one more about this book. We've often heard through black folklore, ignorance is of no excuse in a court of law.
Yeah.
8.03 of this penal code says mistake of law. And it reads, it is no defense to prosecution that an actor is ignorant of any provision of law once the law has taken effect. You have no defense to our prosecution of you for this crime that we have charged you with just because you did not know that jaywalking was against the city ordinance.
You can't use ignorance as an excuse.
So, but we said in the layway, ignorance is no excuse in the court law.
Yeah.
It is no defense to prosecution that an actor. So once you start learning how to read this, though it is like Chinese at first, but the more I read it, the more I've been through training, the more I'm like, man, I love this book. I keep it on the dashboard, keep it in the console, because why? This is a book that every cop has to follow. This is the book that the judge has on the bench. This is the book that the lawyers have. $40. Next, you get your Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary, you got to have it. So then when you hear terms tossed about, for instance, back to this, my mama was mugged. There's no mugging as a title of a crime in this book. What happened to her? Well, she was hit over the head. Well, that was assault. Well, she was hit over the head and they took her purse. Okay, she was a victim of aggravated robbery. Okay? What is aggravated versus non-aggravated crime? What constitutes that? It's not always a weapon. If I kidnap an old person over 60 years old, it becomes aggravated kidnapping just because they're over 60 years old. If I ask for ransom, it goes from kidnapping to aggravated just because I asked for a nickel. So you got to know what the law reads and what it states, and not we normally talk, pardon me, out of our butts, and we say things off of what other people say. Like for instance,
But like you said, that folklore, and it gets passed on from generation to generation.
My family had a black
person to
business.
person.
My family had a business here in Third Ward where we are, and it was a residential business. We lived upstairs. The downstairs was a store, furniture store. We had glass windows. In the 80s, when crack came in, people would break into those windows to steal what we had. So the police told us, okay, Mr. Boudreaux, he said, what if we catch them jumping out of the window and running off with our stuff? He said, well, if you shoot them, drag them back in. Everybody's heard that.
Yeah.
When I teach you the license to carry class,
Even in residential, they say that. You shoot somebody, drag them, put them in your yard.
No. When you take the license to carry class, we'll teach you about Chapter 9 of the use of force of the Penal Code. You have the right to use 9.31 force, 9.32 deadly force, not to protect yourself. I have the right to use 9.33 force or deadly force to protect a third person. I have a right to use 9.41 force to protect my tangible, movable property. I have a right to use 9.42 deadly force to protect my tangible, movable property. I have a right to use 9.43 force or deadly force to protect a third person's property, my neighbors. Joe Horn.
The case where
Joe Horn.
where the
Pasadena,
the immigrants
white man.
they breaking into the
Joe
neighbor's
Horn.
house. He called 911. He said, did he say I'm about to kill him? Did he?
So that is.
Or he said I'm going to get my gun, and the lady said,
Joe Horn. If you really read the penal code, Joe Horn, to me, on one end, he was like 75% superbly justified. I don't care how we look at it. He was in his own domicile. He called the police. He witnessed intruders breaking into his neighbor's house. Under the law, he had a right to defend himself with either force or deadly force from them breaking in his house. He had a right to use force or deadly force to protect his neighbor's house. So technically, the law really was on his side. Where it gets, to me, subjective for us is his articulation on the phone. The dispatcher told him, "Stay there, sir. Police are on the way. I'm going to get my gun.
Yeah.
Sir, the police are on the way. Please stay there and wait." No. I'm going to go outside and kill them.
Yeah.
His intent to me was where it changed the concept versus saying, "I'm going to go out and stop them." He really did. By law, if I see you being assaulted in a parking lot, I don't have to do nothing. There's no good Samaritan law that says I have to intervene, even with all my training. All right? It's if I wish to. And DPS teaches us, when I teach you license to carry, better to be a living witness than a dead hero. Because today might be a day like right now, I'm got a boot on my foot because the foot's messed up.
Yeah.
That today may not be my agile day to be able to jump into my Spider-Man move and pull out my firearm and stop them from hurting you. I may end up getting killed in that act. So what's best for me to do? It's always best to stay a safe distance. But so you get this book, you get the law book. Now, this book, whoo, my God. I have never read a course textbook from a college course that brought me so much joy. I have been through 2 federal police academies at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, which is where this book comes from. This is a book that if you were to go be a federal agent or a federal officer, this book you would get at FLETC in Georgia, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. This book, when you go through a federal police academy or when you go through a state police academy, you're not taught to read this whole book in 6 months or 4 months. You get pieces of it and you got to pick it up and you got to regurgitate pieces. That's why most cops don't know the law. When a cop arrests you, when a police officer arrests you, they used to be able to just put charges on you right then and there.
But you said it's 5.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Police back in the day, they could arrest you and just put the charge on you right there and take you to the court, and then it was up to the DA after that. Now, any police officer in Houston that arrests you, he has to call the DA right there when he's dealing with us to tell the DA what he's found and do you want to pick up the charge? The DA can say, "Nah, we're going to let that one ride," or the DA can say, "Go ahead, and then we'll get him to a grand jury." And that's when you got to get to the grand jury to see if there's enough probable cause to continue the prosecution.
Yeah, that word probable cause is...
We'll talk about that. And that's in these books. But this book makes... Okay, so this book, police have a myriad of things that they can utilize. The 4th Amendment of the Constitution is by far one of the most powerful. When I tell you...
Hey, man, we black. We only know 13, 14 to 15.
Let me tell you something.
And we starting to learn the second because we picking up guns.
Because, let me tell you something. All of police interaction, ask any defense attorney, ask any police officer, all police interaction that deal with us as citizens because they're agents of the government, municipal, county, state, federal. The 4th Amendment says you have the right to be secure in your person against unlawful search and seizure. That's a nice little statement till you see how it's interpreted in books and books and books. So the police, for instance, have a right to, when they stop you, they have to have reasonable suspicion. Unless you just out like doing something, which is what probably most young brothers, unfortunately, are doing. They are drawing the police to them because not all 4 of us sitting here. How often have you been interacting with the police? But when we were young, we probably were doing something that would have caused the police to draw to our attention. So now, the police have a right when they pull you over to say, "Hey, sir, I want to search your vehicle," thinking you don't know your rights. You have a right to say, "No, officer, I don't consent to your search." But you have to know how to articulate that. If they want to go beyond your consent, then they have to have articulable, probable cause. He rolled down his window. He smelled like the hint of mega mint. And I'm like, whoo, it's permeating from his car. It's radiating like he been at a weed cookout. Like they were using weed for the briquettes. All right, it's like, damn, it's like
probable cause.
Probable cause to believe that there's more narcotics afoot in this vehicle. So now I'm going to pull him out, search his vehicle. But if he's got a locked trunk or a locked glove compartment, the police cannot go beyond that. You have to know what the law says, and it changes every so many years. So you have to know what that plain view doctrine. When you get okay, let's go to firearms. Back to firearms. Texas law states right now that every citizen can have a firearm in your vehicle without a license.
Now, go ahead.
No license. You can have a gun right now in your car with no license. Long as 4 criteria are met.
What's that?
First criteria. The gun is not sitting there like you have a cup sitting there. It's not in plain view. Okay? 2, you're not a member of a street gang. I think it's your age, you're not one. 3, you're not barred from having a firearm because of either being a felon or domestic violence, which we got to talk about, domestic violence.
Yeah, because when we hear the term domestic violence, we always think relationship
violence,
of.
but it's actually, it could be me and you as brothers in the same house.
We don't think of that as
me and my
domestic
sister,
violence.
me and my brother is still family violence. And the 4th criteria is that you're not involved in any criminal activity beyond that of a typical traffic violation. So if he has weed in the car, mind you, he's riding down the street, all he has is a firearm, it's under his seat, it's loaded, one in the chamber. It can be loaded, one in the chamber, it can be in his console, it can be on his seat, it can be in the glove compartment. It don't have to be in the trunk in pieces. You're lawful, as long as it's not in what? Plain view. But if he has the smell of weed on him or alcohol permeating, he is now involved in criminal activity beyond a typical run the corner stoplight traffic violation. Now he can be arrested for what's called unlawful carry of a weapon. I have a firearms license to carry.
Now, do I need to alert the the case of the brother that got killed, Philando Castile? He had the gun, a registered gun. He told the police officer, "Hey, I have a gun in the car." Now, going by what you just said, I have a gun, and it's not in plain sight. It's not in plain view. But yeah, I have the probable cause of he's been drinking, he's been smoking. Do I need to alert law enforcement?
Okay, so
I have a gun in my.
All right, so let's use both of us. You don't have a license, I do. When a police officer pulls me over and I have my license and my firearm is on me, soon as he comes out up to the window, both licenses are shown. I have them both ready with my insurance.
To show.
You show him from the gate. Boom, that automatically alerts him. Next question is going to be, where's your firearm? My firearm, sir, and my hands are on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. If it's at night, all my windows are rolled down because, and I want to touch on this, I know our time is burning down, but when a police officer pulls you guys over, listen, in the 90s when we knew each other, and I used to see the police pull over brothers, and they walking up on both sides of the car with their hand on their gun. Oh, man, that shit is racist, man. Fuck the police. Till I went through the training, and I realized you as a police officer walking up solo or even with a partner to a car that's blacked out, you have no idea what's behind the glass in that vehicle. So even as a security officer patrolling a big building and it's dark, you have no idea what's around the corner. You coming in your house after being gone out of the country for like 3 weeks. You open your door, you really don't know what's been in your house all this time. You need to approach it with what? Caution. So now you approach a vehicle not to take up for police. I'm going to give you objective, not subjective. Let's deal with objective.
This ties into why the windows.
Okay, so now the windows start going down so that when the police officer clears the first back panel window and he looks in or she looks in, what? No one there. Good. He's calmed down. Now, how you doing, sir? How you doing, officer? Your job, my job at this point, as the person who got pulled over, is to make that contact very quick and get down the road. It is not to have a confrontation, no matter how jacked up I think it's going. My job is to fight it in court if I feel the ticket or the citation was wrong or complain about his behavior, but it is not to sit here and challenge him at that point when, like, I hate to say it, you know, sometimes your mouth, what they used to tell us as a kid, your mouth gonna overload your behind. So at this point, now I've made it where, sir, my firearm is on me. He can say, or she can say, and the police have a right to say this, even with my license, for your safety and my safety, until we complete this traffic stop, I wish to disarm you. I have to relinquish that. But now, boom, officer, how do you wish for me to give you this? Because I do not want to reach over and grab a gun and I start rolling it up towards him, and he can articulate fear of his life, and now he ends up shooting me. I say, hey, do you want me to step out? You get it? A lot of times my gun is on me, so that I could just say, it's on me. It's bolted to me. You want me to take it off? Most times, most police say, you know what? You just go ahead, keep it. Don't make any moves. And because I have that license, they assume I have responsibility about understanding the rules of it. That's the thing that comes with taking the class.
Yeah, that's what having that
Now,
license.
Philando Castile, brother,
I mean,
I don't want to get subjective, but you always, it does go back. I can tell you that George Floyd, Philando Castile, Tamir Rice, none of them are without any sense of racism. I can say that because of the training that I've been. I teach everything except for taser. I've taken the pepper spray class, the baton class, so I can teach security and law enforcement. I've been a police contractor. So I had to take the classes sitting with SWAT teams, sitting with police.
To see it on both sides.
Listen to what they're being taught.
Yeah.
So I have the manuals like Bibles at home, and I can flip through and tell you that the stuff they're taught versus what they do is two different things. And I've encountered more white police. I've never had a bad interaction with a white cop. I've had more bad interactions with black police as a black man in the black community. Go figure. All right? I've sat in classes with SWAT teams just last year in Louisiana. Cool. And some up, you can tell who's racist. It'll come across. Yeah. I've been in federal training. You can tell the racism. That's fine. That's all good. I know my rights, though. I know how to deal with them from the law. When we were young and we knew each other, we were talking subjective through our poetry or our words. Now that we're older and younger and seasoned adults, now I see what the adults say. The pen is mightier than the sword because a judge will hit you with life while I'm outside yelling for you to be free.
Yeah, they
free
right
Eric,
there. Yeah,
free Eric. And then they're going to free you. But me and this gentleman go in the courthouse and sit behind the lawyer and say, man, what do you need to get Eric off? Okay, well, do you have any witnesses? We need to get an alibi. We need to find out what it is. Can you interview? Hey, man, let's go get this done. That's why I have so much love for the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project comes and gets people free. God ain't never opened no jail cell to free anybody that was innocently convicted. But he took the God
we are starting to see that where a lot of brothers that's done some unjust time. I mean, a lot
oh
of
my
time
God. And I mean,
that are being released
30
now.
years later, your life is gone
man.
behind evidence that was held back in your case.
Okay, now you touched on you having a license and knowing that. Now, earlier we talked about the ignorance of us watching movies and doing all of this other stuff and not knowing proper gun protocol. We just know it looks cool. I gotta protect myself. Most people get a gun. They really don't know how to use the gun. They really don't know how to store the gun.
So we're gonna push the law away. So let's deal with gun safety. So, as I said before, I'm an NRA instructor. I don't promote the NRA.
Yeah, you say the NRA, boy. That's
listen, to become a licensed to carry instructor right now, anybody in this room can become a licensed to carry instructor. There's no prerequisite that you got to prove that you had X number of years of handling a firearm. What you do have to do is you have to go take a basic NRA firearms instructor course. That's 2 days first. That's the prerequisite by DPS. Back in the day when I became a concealed handgun instructor, when it was called concealed handgun in 2005, and it came out in 96, by the way. It came out because a white lady whose family was killed in that Luby's up in Waco. When the white man drove his truck into the Luby's in Waco and jumped out and started shooting everybody, her family was killed and she survived, and she fought for the legislation to give us a concealed handgun license. Now, so back in the day, in the early days, all you had to do was go to DPS, sit through a 40-hour class 1 week in Austin with no knowledge of guns. Hell, you didn't even have to know how to use a gun. But you could sit and become a concealed handgun instructor, and now you're teaching stuff and licensing people.
Wow.
They started realizing how they were, I guess, bad instructors, so they required that people go take an NRA 2-day course. So I took the police side of the course, which was like, well, we have the belt and the duty belt and the shotgun and handgun, and we're doing a lot more than the 2-day course. But you have to become a concealed NRA instructor. Now, the NRA's been around forever. They are the hallmark for gun safety. So, you know, as we were at the range saying, treat every gun as if it's loaded. Keep your finger off the trigger, whether the gun has a safety or not. Knowing what you're aiming the firearm at, because my man here stays in an apartment where it's sheetrock wall to wall. If he shoots in here laterally, let's see, east to west, it's going through the wall. North to south, I don't know what's behind it, but if you go shoot north, it's going out the window. So therefore, you have to know what you're shooting at. So now, talking about gun safety, like I said, I was raised with firearms. My father had guns laying around. He didn't have a safe. In the 70s, a lot of guys had the old cabinet, like China cabinet. You know? You can see Grandpa's shotgun, his old World War II musket, and it was always rusty. But my grandfather had them on the wall in the living room. They were like 2 nails, and he had a shotgun and a 22. That's all we had. He never used them. I never saw my grandfather except when somebody broke in the house, and that thing was dirty and cooped up with gook. So it was me that started playing with it. But once again, no training, no real training. I have had negligent discharges. We all have had them. Anybody who's ever handled a gun has accidentally shot the gun in their house. Either playing with it or even trying to clean it. Cops have shot other cops in the duty station trying to, clean the gun, put it back in the holster. Bow! People have shot themselves, professionals, mishandling the firearm, or it goes on. It happens to the best of us. My son is 25, my daughter's 15. The 2 things I taught them from the beginning of their life, when they could see in the crib, was I taught them gun safety. And as they got older, I taught them how to swim. The 2 things that black children die from, drowning and firearms. So my daughter is 15. She started going to the gun range. I started teaching when she was born. She was at the gun range at 2, looking through the glass as I was teaching students on the range. So she had the little headphones on, looking around. So as she was 4, and I was in police training, she started seeing the duty belt, and I started having to teach her more because she was more enticed with guns than my son. My son saw him, but I never pushed guns. I never buy a child a toy gun. Let me say that equivocally across the board.
Wow, okay.
I'm 49, you guys are younger than me, but in my generation, we had cap guns, water guns, everything, and it was nothing for us, plus the cartoons desensitized us with aiming guns at each other. We were trained to play cowboys and Indians, robber and bad guy, police. We were trained to, and it was commonplace for us to aim a gun at each other. So it was nothing for us to transition with movies. As the 80s came in with Terminator and Beverly Hills Cop and all these other movies, Scarface, we want to be the bad guy. And the blaxploitations didn't make it no better either.
That's crazy.
So in the end all be all now, here's the 90s, and rap music starts talking about, killing each other. And Cube, I love Cube. I've done security for Cube, but he was the prolific promoter of that energy. As conscious as he is today, he started that ball rolling, him and Dr. Dre and NW. And I love their music. If I'm not into nothing, I don't feel right. So I grab the 9 and the clip and go and murder. I was doing that. Now, my daughter, at 4 years old, I started actually teaching her gun safety. And this is a gun safe that you can buy. I'm going to promote it. You can get it at Harbor Freight. You can get it at Home Depot. It's a quick little digital safe. It has a key, and it also has a thing. But inside, I have a training pistol that we use at the range. We treat this as if it's a firearm as well in training. So I'm not going to aim it anywhere that's unsafe. I'm going to handle it in a certain way. So should you lock up a firearm? Of course. My daughter started getting gun lessons at 4, meaning not how to shoot and all that. When you see a gun in the room, Daddy has a duty belt. Daddy has police gear. She was always, standing there like, can I see? Can I look? Can I touch? I'm like, no, baby, let's go through this. I would get this out. Say, guns are not toys. You're to never walk around the house and pick this up and play with it. Even though it's laying in a training box that I have, you cannot play with this unless I supervise you. 1. 2, when you see one of these, what do you do? Even if it's real or not, I go get you, Daddy. Guns are for who, sweetie? Guns are for big people, not toys. She begged me for a Nerf gun because my cousins would run around with them. No. You can never play with anything that has a trigger, it has a handle, that looks like it's real, and you pull the trigger unless I'm supervising you. Okay? So you can never buy them anything, even a water gun. If it's a super soaker, it's got to have the pumper, but not the gun type. It could be the hose kind, but I won't even buy them that because I don't want them to understand the difference of spraying water like spraying bullets. This is a time and a place. Once you start it, now we teach it in RA, and I never made guns a mystery. If I had this gun and Say Savvi had a gun and he got kids in the house. So he said, well, I'm gonna put the gun on top of the cabinet. Well, we know kids climb cabinets. He gonna hide the gun under the chair. Kids, when you're not looking, I'm that kid, I'm an only child. I was always digging through stuff. I'm gonna find this gun. Then I'm
You made her aware at a young age that it's a gun in the house.
Every day, not only that, because I carried it.
Yeah.
And when I would pick her up, she would feel it. So she would, Daddy, I'm hurting, I'm on your gun side. So it got so commonplace for her to know there was a gun in the house, like a salt and pepper shaker on the table. So when you make it such a common place that they see him, it doesn't become a mystery, and it's almost like, that's just Daddy's. Like a cell phone. She won't mess with it.
But she knows it's not
She
a toy.
knew.
Yeah.
So then as she got older, then as a single father, I had to teach her how to move the gun. If she came in the bedroom, because it did stay on my dresser when I got home. I kept one gun out, but I taught her gun safety about it. The rest of the guns were always locked up in a big safe. So I had to teach her about, well, what happens if a burglar comes in? And I might need you to go get the gun. Now she's 8. How to handle it, how to bring it to me. Or how to maybe pick it up. The law states you cannot make a firearm accessible to a child. A child is anybody under 17 years of age. But she's 8, and I'm saying, if I'm fighting a burglar, you see me fighting a burglar, you go get Daddy's firearm and you aim it at both of us. If he knocks Daddy out, you might have to fire to save your life. Under Texas law, I am protected that she can use that firearm to save her life. So I had to teach my daughter, my precious son, that they have to survive no matter what. There's a difference. Now, I still don't let them handle firearms unless I take them to the range. So we do have family outings. Every other month, I'm like, let's go. My son has his license. My daughter's 15. I bought her a pistol. It's in my house. When she's at work with her mother, it's at my house. She has a shotgun. She goes shotgun shooting.
See, we've been taught that it's this stigma that comes with guns.
Because
like we
black
grew up in
people-
households where you hide the gun, you don't
Because
tell the
black
kid.
people have been traumatized by either someone shooting it at a loved one, or we heard it go off. I've had more ladies, like the ladies we had, who had never shot a firearm, never touched one. A firearm and a car are the same. They're mechanical devices that you control. They have rules. You don't put your foot on the gas when you put it in gear. You don't pick this up and put your finger on the trigger. You pick it up with all. Once I teach you the rules, most women get enthusiastic about firearms. And I'm not promoting firearms. I'm promoting safety. And longevity of your life if you have to. But everything in this table that we're sitting here with on this is a weapon. I don't need a gun.
I got a question for you about something you said. Because when you talked about toy guns, it brought me back to my family in New Orleans, which basically from the hood, we would be like in Gerttown and Holly Grove. I remember distinctly, we would go to the corner store, we would get a yo-yo, and we already had the gun, we get the caps.
The paper caps.
Yeah, the caps. And we would be busting at each other, just shooting cap guns. Well, of my cousins, my grandmother and her sister lived next door, so they were like second cousins, but we'd all go do this. 2 of them are in jail right now, and one of them, it was over basically, an incident with a gun where he had lost something, and one felt like he shouldn't have lost as much as he lost. So it was just putting that connection. Like, how did you as a relatively young man see the connection between even something as innocent? Because nobody in this, I never even thought about that until you explained it like that.
Brother, I'm at 49 now and sound like an old man because I'm halfway to the grave. I say it all the time as a joke. But you look back, I spent a lot of time looking at, as an activist, we're social scientists trying to solve social conditions that we lived in. And some of those conditions we actually permeated. My mom had me at 16. So I look at any kid under 16, I could be their daddy. So 32 and below, I could be their daddy. Yeah. And I look at where they are now and I think about, okay, shit, this is what I did wrong. What did I do wrong? When me and this gentleman met, I was 1999, I was 28 when we were doing Muddy Waters, 29. So we had elders that would come in the room with us that were watching us do poetry. And we're trying to do poetry to them to get their attention about the problems that existed because what they didn't do in the 80s. Now I'm looking at look at the things that they're doing in the 2020 that we were promoting, like the hip hop. We never thought hip hop would take it this far and go off course. So now when you talk about what have I looked at as wrong, I realize at 49, I'm having to tell my son, hey, you know, I'll be honest, like, hey, brother, don't chase women as much as I might have.
Yeah.
Why? Because we were raised in a highly sexualized society. And with that being said, kill that over there for me. I'm so sorry. We were raised in such a highly sexualized society that we made all these babies out of wedlock, and we shouldn't have. Guns. Eric started off perfectly. I hate to say it. I hate to use, you know, gangster rap made me do it, but we really did promote rap music with guns and
with me
misogyny.
saying it was more so promoting guns without promoting gun safety. Because let me give you an example before we wrap it up.
Do you think a rapper was going to be a public service announcement?
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I went to firearms class.
Well, no, this is what I'm saying. I hear
The
y'all.
range, and I was doing my thing, and I'm about to hit the block and put it right. You know, it's like it's not going to happen that way.
Well, the ignorance of it's just like, okay, if a person is well studied in history and you listen to a rapper and you say, damn, that ain't accurate. That's not historically accurate. I'm listening and I'm saying, he's saying that, but that's not historically accurate. You hear rappers talk about guns and the stuff that they say, and you say, that's not accurate. They talk about, oh, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Or they say things about guns and you say, because I'm all for freedom of speech. I'm not saying, I don't want to censor anyone. I'm just saying with the misinformation that goes out there. Or you watch a movie and you see your brother pull out a gun and he's doing this.
Oh,
so you start thinking, that's how
Yeah.
I'm supposed to hold the gun. It's the misinformation that gets put out there.
We emulated. We're victims or products of emulation and not education. You're absolutely right. We follow. Like, I often wonder, how does a person get a Jamaican accent? My lady and I were just saying, how does one get a Jamaican accent being on the island? That broken patois accent. How does one get a New Orleans accent? How does one get a New York accent? How does those, or hey homie, hey cuz, you go to LA, hey homie. It's like, how do we pick, we all in the same country, but how do you pick up these accents? It's all about emulating what we hear the first thing out of our mothers and fathers' mouth. So you're absolutely right. I applaud you. So let me say this. I didn't get to say it before because he brought it up, and I'll say it again. You called me up saying, Mike, a lot of brothers talk about how we need to protect our black women, and we don't. And you're like, we want to sponsor 10 women to get basic awareness of firearms because they are either single or they're single mothers or they just want to know. And I believe that I took a motorcycle class. I thought I was going to buy a bike when $4 gas was prevalent. But I've never owned a bike to this day. But I still have the license, and I took it to do what? Get the skill set. I took scuba diving classes. I got tanks. I haven't dove in a long while, but I have the knowledge that when I get ready to pick the gear up, I know how to use it. Now I'm getting ready to probably try to get a CDL because I might want to do some driving or something in a big RV. I want the knowledge. So to me, is if the knowledge is afforded and it's free and it's something that the state or the government allows me to get a license, why not take it? Just like the Matrix tank, load me up. You remember what he say? Load me. How can I fly a helicopter? Give me a second. I want the knowledge of everything. To be a god on this planet, you gotta have knowledge. So,
before we wrap it up, one quick thing that we didn't get to touch on, just to educate people: the no-knock warrant.
Real quick, Breonna Taylor, no-knock warrant. What is a no-knock warrant used for? A no-knock warrant is generally used in law enforcement when they're carrying out a raid for narcotics. And the reason why a no-knock warrant is used is because they typically, if I know that, let's use the movie since we all know the movie Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
The opening scenes of Straight Outta Compton.
The
they was in the dope house. And he said, hey man, one time, 5-0 coming. So now what are they doing? They got time to what? Flush it down. So a no-knock warrant is used to not alert the suspects that we're coming in, so they got time to flush the dope. That's generally what it's used for, so that they don't. And they use it 6 in the morning. Police at my door. Well, whenever they carry out most raids, it's in the wee hours when you probably asleep, and they don't give you time. Supposedly they knocked on the door and they announced themselves. We weren't there to know what happened, but her boyfriend was justified. Once he shot, they were under the banner that the warrant was a justifiable. They were under color of law. People have to understand what police training is. I'm not justifying it, but under color of law, they had a legitimate warrant. They were going in to get narcotics or a warrant to arrest. They had a no-knock warrant. They went in. Once the gun went off from the guy, they had now pulled their guns out and they're justified in trying to repel whatever threat is stopping them from going in to effect that warrant. Unfortunately, she is dead. Both sides had justification. People say, well, why they not going to pay? They did pay. The city of that city paid blood money. They gave them 14, however millions of dollars. That's called, under color of law, we accept responsibility that an individual died in the effect of a warrant that we thought was legit. It was the wrong house. We will pay for her death. Now, people want the cops to pay. Under their official duties, they have immunity from that. So people got to understand sometimes when we see stuff. I wanted to touch on the brother in Georgia, and we didn't get to touch on that, at the Wendy's.
Yeah.
And the 5 use of the force of continuum. Maybe we'll do that another day. And how that brother messed himself up when he got shot.
Yeah.
Those police soft shoot him. You have 5 steps under police interaction with you of force, and they walk through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They could have went from 1 to 5 or 2 to 5. Everything was going right for him until he bolted. And we have to know subjectively how to stop getting mad because it's white on black. Hell, black cops shoot us too. But we have to look at, what did we do? We never want to acknowledge that brother. Let's end it with this. The brother in Philadelphia that just got shot with the knife. They tore up the city. First off, he had a knife. Bulletproof vests don't stop knives. They stop round bullets. If you have a knife, I'm not going to pull a taser. Like they say, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Mm-hmm. He brought a knife to a gunfight. They were not, the use of force doesn't say you got to pull a taser or a baton when he got a knife. No, he has a deadly weapon. He don't have a PVC pipe. He got a knife. They supposed to shoot or pull a weapon. You got to understand what, if you sit in a police class or security, I'm going to teach you the same thing. So we got to stop being upset about what is happening. We got to also look at our people and start teaching our young people how not to do stuff to draw the police to them like flies to Dookie. Other than that,
hey, there's subjectivity and objectivity, and you got to be on the side of being objective in how you articulate your situation. It could be a matter of life in prison, or it could be a matter of your freedom.
Gentleman and a scholar, man. It was a pleasure.
Definitely, man.
Up, man.
What did Denzel say in training day? This is chess, not checkers. We playing on a game, and the table is rigged, and we got to know the law so we can move around the board.
This is Gentleman's History Hour. If y'all get a chance, study the law, study the history of the law. It'll give you some context on where we are today. Thank y'all. Peace.
Safe.
If you're watching this on YouTube, man, hey, y'all, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. This is Gentleman's History Hour.